So it's critically important that we, as voters in the 20th Congressional District, send somebody to Congress that understands those needs. And we have someone here today that is well-versed in what small businesses need here in the 20th Congressional District. That's Chris Gibson. And Chris is no stranger to serving this country and the public in general. For those of you who don't know, he was in the Army for 24 years, was deployed 7 times, served 4 combat sessions in Iraq. He was decorated with over half a dozen military decorations, including
I think you do, don't you?
No.
What's your name?
Joe Gilroy.
Retired in the rank of colonel,
Yes, you do. I'm John Gillespie. I'm the Republican chair here.
His wife, Mary Jo.
Isn't that paid to go on following Chris Gibson around?
This time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you.
$2,000 a month? Thank you. You're ashamed of yourself. I know everything. I'm the town chair.
Wow.
What did you say?
Ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you that I'm overwhelmed. I did not expect this kind of turnout here.
Excuse me.
Such a beautiful day after having gone through several days of rain like this. You had so many choices of where you could be today. You chose to be here, and that means a lot. That means a lot to our campaign. Todd, thanks for that very generous introduction and for really opening up here to have this opportunity. As Todd mentioned, I'm married. My wife, Mary Jo, is a licensed
You're not welcome here, just so you know.
And we have 3 kids.
Not at all.
Maggie.
I was told at the beginning it was an open event. I was perfectly welcome to be here.
12, 11, and 9, and they're in the same school district that I went to years ago. I'm from
I haven't been disruptive yet.
That's a small town in Columbia County, northern Columbia County. And I went to Ichabod Crane. Usually I start to duck when that happens. And, you know, I come from a working class family. You may have seen the ad. But I'm proud of that. I'll say I really am. We didn't have a lot of money, but we did have love in our family. We had love and we had guidance and direction. Or you might call it discipline. Love and discipline, I think, are 2 fundamental American values to go through in life. Yes, indeed. And you know, as we reflect on the tough times that we're in right now, and we know we are, you know, you look at the levels of unemployment right now, 9.6%, and it doesn't tell the whole story. It doesn't tell the whole story because the way we do statistics is if you stop looking, we actually lower the unemployment rate. But even then, it doesn't capture the number of underemployed. The people that really are doing something part-time until something better comes along. We know that we're capable of so much more than this. And in these tough times, I have to tell you, I can empathize. I can empathize because that's part of our family story. You know, Dad worked for Otis Elevator in the 1970s, and in the mid-1970s, that meant for some good times, hard-working life, I mean, times at union picnics. There were some great memories, but the late 70s, when the economy fell on hard times, our family fell on hard times. So, you know, Dad spent a good portion of 1978 and 1979 out of work. And I watched a proud man have to collect unemployment. And, you know, that's not an easy thing. And I watched how that was eating at him. And it had something to do with me coming of age and my political views. Because, see, my family were all Democrats. That's not going to surprise you, given the ethnic background and given the working class. But watching my dad go through this and looking for answers in the late 70s and early 80s, you know, I just didn't feel that Jimmy Carter, a moral man, I didn't feel like we were getting the leadership that was necessary. So when Ronald Reagan came to the fore, he had a message that I could really connect with. You know, he wasn't talking about, you know, I watched Jimmy Carter and I saw him, he had a sweater on, and he was addressing us from the Oval Office, and he was talking about turning down the thermostat. And you could appreciate some element of discipline in that, but I kept thinking, are our best days behind us? Could this really be true? We were told to sort of have lower expectations, and then I watched Ronald Reagan come to the fore, and he said, with the right choices, Our best days are still in front of us. And he talked about removing impediments to growth. And he talked about unleashing the creativity of entrepreneurs. And I think about this business here, and I think about businesses all across our district. And I tell you that I empathize with the circumstance with unemployment, but I also empathize with the fact that we expect way too much. We have climbed up on the back of small business. We lead in all the wrong categories here in New York. And then we can't understand why it is that with this census, we stand to lose 2 congressional seats. We have seen half, since the time that I left Ichabod Crane and Siena College, we've lost half of the Fortune 500 companies headquarters in New York since the time I got back in February. I mean, we are, ladies and gentlemen, we're moving in the wrong direction. And it's not, all the leading economic indicators, when you look at gross domestic product and you see we're at 1.7% growth after it's been revised, this is anemic. And really it's unacceptable. When you think about the greatness of our country and you think about all that we're capable of, and you look out there and say, well, what answers are we getting right now? Well, you know, for the first time since 1974, we have no budget. We have no budget right now, no federal budget. Not talked about too often in the media, that our leaders down there in Washington, D.C. did not have the gumption to come together and pass a budget because they didn't want to stand behind it in an election year. Well, you know, Todd referred to the fact that I served in the Army, and I'll tell you my experience is that on a day like this, in a beautiful day like this, Army units can really go without leadership. They can see each other relationally, they can move, but you know it's in the dark of the night, it's in the driving rain, and it's under fire. That's when you need leadership. That's when you have to step forward and provide leadership. And in governance, when we're having these kind of economic times, and we're racking up a debt that threatens the choices and freedoms of future generations, that's when we need leadership more than ever. And in the time when we need leadership, our leadership is hiding. A few nights ago, there was a vote on whether or not to leave Washington, D.C. You know, the targeted adjournment date was the 8th of October. But it was widely known down there in D.C. that they really wanted to get home because they were concerned about their jobs. They wanted to campaign earlier so they could get another week of campaigning in. You know what? When that vote came up, to go home or not, or to stay, knowing the fact that we had no budget, ladies and gentlemen, there are 12 appropriations bills that are passed every year that fund the federal government. They didn't pass a single one. That Congress down there didn't pass a single appropriations bill. And our tax cuts for all of us, the people's tax cuts right now that are in peril, they didn't do anything on it. And this so disgusted 39 Democrats that they joined with the Republicans. The only thing bipartisan about that vote was the opposition to going home without having done the people's business. I regret to tell you that Speaker Pelosi passed the vote. She passed it by one vote. And our representative right here voted with Speaker Pelosi to go home. We deserve better than this. We deserve better than this. What we need to do, so, you know, I have shared with you that I'm disappointed too. But you know what? I'm not discouraged. I think we can pull through this. But here's what we have to do. First of all, let's recognize the fact that we're in tough times. And then let's listen. Because you know what? The answers to our problems right now are available to us if we listen to small business owners and their employees. That's something our campaign has been doing. And we listen very carefully. And here's what I've heard. The 3 major impediments to growth are taxes, regulation, and healthcare costs. So our campaign is about targeting those. And we recognize that we need to preserve the people's tax cuts. Now is not the time to raise taxes. I've studied history, please believe me on this. I can do it if you want to afterwards, we can talk about it. That our country has made mistakes in the past in a recession, and we've raised taxes in a recession. And I will tell you that that's what happened that caused, in my view, a recession and a double-dip recession to become a depression. That we were not destined to be in a depression in the 1930s. We clearly were going to have a recession, but we took actions that actually exacerbated the situation, and among those were raising taxes. We should not raise taxes now. That will have a second-order effect, because if you talk to the small business owners in here, they'll tell you that their profitability is really the issue. And by the way, it's the same for our farmers. Our hard-working farmers, you know, our farmers, we have the hardest working and the smartest farmers in the world. Their issue is profitability. And their profitability is under assault because of taxes, regulation, and healthcare costs, and because of the price discovery for our dairy farmers that needs to be addressed in the 2012 Farm Bill. But our campaign is about tax relief, and it's also about regulatory relief. You know, I was with a company in Finderhook yesterday in my hometown. That is a biomedical company. And there is a new rule going into effect on the 15th of October that impacts 20% of their business. And it impacts, they do medical testing. And so the federal government has come in and said, well, we're going to regulate the way you do the saliva testing on the drug testing. And when you look for trying to understand why they're doing this, it's not clear. And so we need to stop that. I mean, this is what's standing in the way of our growth, is that we have too many duplicative regulations, situation where the federal government and the state government are doing the same kind of regulation, moving in businesses in different directions. And we have regulations that are unnecessary, and our businesses are fighting it every day. I was with a very prominent member of the business community here in the northern region yesterday, and he thinks that he's very pessimistic about our future because he thinks we won't be able to reverse it. He doesn't think we're going to be able to remove the regulations that stand in the way. And I listened very carefully to him, but you know what I said? I refuse to accept that. I refuse to accept that because if that's so, he's not right. I refuse to accept it.
I'm trying to get a videotape.
Fine.
If that's true, then I'm going to be
This is what I do.
He's from the New York State Democratic Party, and he's hired to do this.
Oh, I see.
And I will
You make
tell
big
that I'm going to
bucks.
fight like heck. I'm not going to accept that. We're going to fight harder.
Personal question.
And maybe you really need to listen.
It's also the healthcare.
I'm trying. I'm being. You
No,
know,
he
you're
can-
seeing what's
you're not
happening.
trying-
Listen when you're trying to focus.
You're not listening to what's being told.
Have healthcare insurance.
Well, I'm attempting to, but
He comes to everything. He's been doing it all year.
He makes big
You know
bucks
what?
out of being
We
a
have a safety net, albeit far from perfect, in Medicaid. What we should have done first is something we all could agree on, which was to address the cost issue that's impacting the 88% who have healthcare insurance. And instead what we did, we didn't do, in my view, we didn't do healthcare reform. We did healthcare expansion.
Don't touch.
And what we really did is put too much government in the way. Now, and many of you probably many of you, this probably have happened to you. You've got new estimates for your healthcare costs next year. Depending on where you are in our district, these increases are anywhere from 12 to 35%. And what's really hideous about it is that the further you are away from a metropolitan area, the higher your premiums are going up. That's the way this works in terms of the number of doctors who are available.
I
The
worked in
supply and demand
insurance.
impacts everything,
Know the
including
game.
healthcare. So higher premiums, higher taxes, more regulation, including the 1099. You know, the 1099 has made a lot of news lately because our representative says he's leading the charge to do away with the 1099. Wait a minute. This is the guy who gave us the 1099.
Yeah.
He gave us the 1099. You see,
You have free health
we're
insurance?
actually awake here. You know, we're paying
You pay a
attention.
lot for your health insurance?
And more big government at
You
a
need
time
to
that I
think
think we
and
need to be
listen.
cutting the size of the federal government.
listen
We're
and
gonna
think.
have a couple dozen new boards and commissions and 16,000 new IRS workers. Now, we can debate about a lot of things, but I think we can agree. We don't need 16,500 new IRS workers. We absolutely need more doctors. That's a whole other issue, and I've been listening to doctors on how to approach that. What we need to do is inspire. We need to inspire the youth out here. If you have kids that are coming of age, we need to try to inspire more doctors. And we need to reverse the trend of the number of doctors who are discouraging their kids from becoming doctors. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, this is the positive plan. Tax and regulatory relief, and repeal and replace the health care bill with one that will help drive down costs.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Now, our ideas are not going to be a
Pushing me.
panacea for health care. There's so much to be done. But let's take a chunk out of it by driving costs down, by having competition for insurance company across state lines, by having transparency, and having tort reform.